Tidworth. Tidworth is full of restaurants, or full of takeaways.
Well, I describe it rather terribly as being in the middle of nowhere, but close to loads of places that loads of people know.
Middle of nowhere to me.
I quite like it in Tidworth. Probably one of the only ones that does, but I don't mind it out here.
And yeah, delightful Tidworth. I'm here because I'm married to my husband. We've been together about 7 years now.
I'm in Tidworth because my husband's in the army. He's a Royal Engineer.
My husband got posted. He's actually posted in Bulford, but because they haven't got any houses there, they've placed us in Tidworth.
The first year that I was an army wife was horrible. It wasn't very family orientated. I didn't have children and I worked, so I didn't get to meet many wives. I was very isolated, quite low, probably one of the lowest points of my life.
I'd only been here about a week and we'd had a few teething problems with the house and it was all quite difficult. And then my neighbour came round and just introduced herself and invited me to absolutely everything. And that was really good because all of a sudden I knew someone.
You're all in the same boat, you're all moved about, you don't... I mean, people can walk into a group and they don't know anybody. And that's hard, but a lot of people are open to say, oh, you know, come and sit with us, and it is easy to make friends if you put yourself out there. If you don't, then you've just got no chance.
And, you know, you're prepared to follow them wherever, I guess.
I don't know, because I thought it would be easy, but my dad didn't go away a lot, and Chris has been away a lot. I find it quite difficult, actually.
You get married and you do all that. I knew exactly what I was doing.
You knew what you were signing on for, yeah.
And you've got little ones, it's easier for you because then at least you've gone to
Yeah, because you're going to school, you're going to meet other people. If you don't have kids, I think that's when it's hard.
I knew no, like I said, it doesn't matter when you've got kids.
Yeah.
I didn't really know anything about the army life. I mean, not even when I met Kev, probably, I don't know, a year into our relationship, once we started getting serious, then I started like going to visit him in Germany and saw a few things and that. But really, I didn't know anything till we were married for 6 months. Yeah, I mean, he loves the army. I love the army. I think it's brilliant, and it is big around here. Yeah.
The artillery don't really move about a lot. They move as groups and they tend to do it every sort of 10 years. But for me, it's everyone else leaves me here. Like in the last few weeks already, about 3 of my friends have gone.
For me, it's every 2 to 3 years that we move, and it's a bit of a pain in the backside sometimes because you've just made a nice group of friends and they're really supportive, and then with 1 month's notice you lose them.
I've done 2 moves. My son didn't handle the first move well at all. I've got health visitors that helped me there. We've moved here 3 months ago. He's still under a health visitor.
The girl that has been my best friend for probably the last 9 months has just moved to Germany. She moved on Friday. My other closest friend who lives across the street is moving today. So it is hard because you make attachments to people and you share your life story with them and then they go and then you have to explain that to somebody else again. Or when your husband's away and you are feeling a bit low, there's nobody to turn to because they've either moved or you haven't met people yet or whatever.
We used to live next door but 3 to the kids' grandma. So it was all family and friends orientated, and then I've moved into it, and my husband is fine, he's got all his friends in the army, and I've moved here and it's the same, he's got his friends in the army and I don't know anyone. It actually feels in the middle of nowhere because you don't know anyone and no one actually talks. So trying to find out where things are, it is quite isolating.
Did you have a nice sleep, lovely? Yeah. You've got your crazy bedhead, haven't you? Yeah, I'll go and get your juice from the other room, okay? A huge problem is loneliness and boredom. And you know, if you're stuck in a house with 1, 2 kids, or obviously if you're stuck in a house on your own, then that's a different issue. But from my perspective, you know, you're stuck in a house with a small child, whereas normally Daddy would come home and, you know, be someone else to talk to, someone else for the little one to play with, all of those things. That's gone.
You're either an army wife or you're not. You either can do it or you can't. And there are times where you think you can and you can't, or there's times that you think you can't and you can. But the first couple of years really makes you aware of whether you can do it or not. And unfortunately for the people that can't, it usually ends marriages. So it doesn't matter how much you love somebody, if you can't be away from your family and you can't do it on your own, you're not going to last. And I think that, you know, you either return home to your family and leave your husband, or keep your husband and move away from your family. It's not so great because sometimes life's a bit crappy and you want somebody to give you a cuddle and tell you it's okay, and they're not there. It was particularly difficult when I had my son. I had him by caesarean, and Mike was on lots of training to go away, and he couldn't take the time off. He took 2 weeks off, which was his paternity leave. He should have also had 2 weeks Easter leave, but he couldn't because he was training. And I needed looking after for 8 weeks. I couldn't drive. I couldn't, you know, I just had a major operation to have our son, and I had to go home to my family to be looked after, and really that should have been the job of my husband.
Sophia was born halfway through my husband being in Afghanistan. He managed to come back and see her born in his R&R, but then he went home, he went to Afghanistan again when she was about 6 days old, and then didn't see her again for 3 months. So having a period of time afterwards was invaluable to them actually building a relationship together, because otherwise she wouldn't have really known who Daddy was.
I had a baby that ended up on neonatal, and I was in hospital on my own for a week. It would have just been nice if he could have been there or something, really, because we didn't get to hold him till he was 4 hours old, and then he had to go straight back to work, which was sad, really, and sad for him. I feel sometimes that it's not always paid enough attention to, that they miss out on the first steps, the first word, all the things that I get to do and the nice things I get to do in the week as well. Even if he's at home and he's just at work, he comes home to a crabby baby that just wants to go to bed, really, and I think that's sad.
Sure, I'm in. Good girl, that's it.
I mean, I've got 3 young children because of the army. As in, I had my first, my husband went away, so we decided we'd have another because he wasn't going away, so he wouldn't miss the bit that he had missed. And then just had Phoebe because we thought we should. because the other 2 were close, then we decided a third should be close as well. So it's worse if they're on tour. That's awful. You can go for days without speaking to them, and then they do phone, but then you can hear an alarm and the phone goes dead, and you're thinking, oh, you know, what's going on, what's happened, and then, you know, it take 2 days for them to ring back to say, oh, sorry, the phones went dead or something, and I mean, that's hard.
Where's Daddy going next year? Do you know where he is? Should we point? Point. He's going there, that's right. Far away. Yeah. But he always comes back, doesn't he? Yeah. Bye. Yes, that's what we do. We say bye. And then a few months later we say hello. Do you want to get down?
Sometimes they're on, you know, communications lockdown, so you'll be hoping for a phone call, and then 4 days will go by and you won't hear anything. And you deal with that by knowing that if anything bad had happened, you would know. So the fact that you haven't heard anything is actually good news.
The most I can do is just as many phone calls as we can do, as many letters as we can do, get the pictures back out, and that is all I can do.
just write lots of letters and send lots of parcels, and you know, if you get the phone calls then you're lucky, and yeah, you just have to kind of hope that they know what they're doing and they've been trained well enough and they're with a close enough team to know that they're going to come home and it'll be all right.
Oh, brilliant.
I mean, you do worry, and especially if you hear on the news that someone's died, and if they're from the same regiment, or you know that person, or you know the wife, or I mean, you don't even have to know that person, and someone could just say, "Oh, she lost her husband," and then you're instantly like, "Oh, you know that can happen to anybody."
I suppose you just have to think positively rather than negatively, and think that they are going to come home in one piece. Try not to watch the news too much as well, because every time you hear that someone else has died, it does kind of make you think a bit, like pulls at the heartstrings, I think. So it is worrying, but you just have to try and put it to the back of your mind, otherwise, I don't know, you wouldn't really get through the 6 months while they're away, because you can't just sort of pick up the phone and ask them if they're all right. They can only talk to you sort of when they're in a place that's got connections, like internet or telephone connections.
Obviously I miss him, but I don't really think about missing him. It's, oh God, I've got to do this, or I've got to bath the babies every night by myself, and I've got to cope with the kids by myself, and I think that's the tough bit. And obviously you do miss them, and then they phone and say, oh, how are the kids? Yeah, I think it's just tough for the kids more than having, like, my son saying, where's Dad? And yeah, that's the hardest bit. But
she constantly cries for her dad. She will be absolutely fine. She'll be playing, she'll be drawing, and then the next minute she'll come up for a cuddle and she'll just burst into tears and say she misses her dad.
You kind of have to run your life as if you are a single mum, even though you're not, because you never know if they're going to be here or not. Just, you know, it's not unusual for him to come home and say, oh, I'm going away next week.
He come back the other day and says he might be going away for 8 weeks. He doesn't know whether he'll be back at the weekend. He's not 100% sure whether he's either going or not.
you know, my husband could come home tonight and go, I'm going to Iraq for 6 months, but I'm going next week.
And you just can't rely on them necessarily to be there, or even if they do have sports afternoon on a Wednesday, they might not some weeks, or might not finish early on a Friday. You just don't know. It's so up in the air.
Basically, I run the house and sort the kids, and my husband works around it. You know, it's hard. It is hard. You're getting up and you're doing everything, and if he's there, he's there. It's a bonus, and if he's not, he's not.
It's hard to plan things as well, holidays and things sometimes, because you just don't know if they're going to be about. You don't know if they're going to be working late on the Friday, what time they're finishing. Can we go away this weekend? You know, have you got early start Monday, or are you in at 10? Because they never seem to know what's going on until right at the last minute.
You just get set in your own routine, so when they're away, and life continues. You can't put everything on hold, and you know, I don't think my son would understand that, so you can't mope around and not be happy and do the things that you want to do because they might be having a rough time out there. You just have to get on.
They run every 15 minutes now, don't they?
It's quite good that
is very
to Andover, but not to Salisbury.
No.
There's not really very much in Tidworth. There's a Lidl and a Tesco, and apparently it's got loads better now that there is Tesco, but I didn't actually live here before that.
Okay, thank you.
You can get by on a daily basis, and if not, there's always Andover, which is about 20 minutes away, or Salisbury, that's about 40, so yeah, you just have to make sure that when you're out, you know, you get everything while you're out, otherwise it's a bit of a trek back if you've forgotten something.
Food shopping's great because there's Tesco's, Lidl, the Spar, the Londis. If you want Indian takeaway, that's good too because there's 2 of those. Chinese. There's all that sort of stuff, lots of hairdressers and a bank, but sort of it's not really a place you'd go sort of shopping if you wanted clothes and stuff like that.
In Perham Down, I feel sorry for the people that don't drive. There is a bus service, but every time I've tried to use it, I've either just missed it or it hasn't turned up.
It is quite an expensive bus ride. It's well over £5. I think it's about £5.70 return, something like that. So I only tend to do it once a week, really, rather than 2 or 3 times. But then because of the length of the journey and the length of the journey back again, it's trying to coordinate it around, you know, nap times and feed times and things like that. So yeah, that's probably another reason why I only do it once a week.
I don't know how people do it when they don't drive. I'm quite lucky because I do drive, but I wouldn't know what you'd do if you didn't. I think it would be hard work and stuff.
Before we got the second car, I felt quite trapped here and unable to go and do the kind of shopping that we needed until my husband came home from work, and he was never home in time for when the shops were open, so we could only do it at weekends, which was busy, and when you've got a baby, that's difficult. So, you know, when we got the second car, we were then a lot freer to do more shopping at the times that sort of suits a mum and a child, basically. And I don't know what it must be like for people who don't drive at all. That must be incredibly hard.
I don't drive, so when he goes away, I'm completely isolated. Started my driving lessons here, but then my husband went away, so I had to finish my driving lessons. I have no transport. If I use the buses are quite expensive. I've got myself and 4 kids to put on the bus, but I pay for myself and my 2 older children. So if I want to go through to Andover, it probably costs me a fortune with all the kids. And that's where the shopping centre is. Taxis are well out of the way, there's no way I could cover that. So basically, I'm pretty much naffed, and while he's away, when he's home, I'm not too bad, I can get out at the weekend, but through the week, I have no mode of transport because he takes the car to work.
There is a Sure Start centre here, and there's also an NSPCC centre here, and then obviously there's the things that the Army does as well, so there's quite a lot of options. We tend to do something every day of the week with a group.
There is quite a bit to do. Sometimes I don't think the advertising's very good though, because you don't always know what's going on. You can kind of hear about it and think, oh, it's been going on for months and I didn't know.
At the other camp I was on, I was able to get a full list of everything that they did. I've received nothing at all. I went in and asked, is there anything that's going on in the area for the older kids, because they're used to going out and doing things, and there's not that much unless you've got enough money, because the leisure centre's expensive. If you haven't got transport, there's nothing you can get to. There's literally, all you've got is the Ordnance House that have got the youth centres for the kids. That's it. That's all I've found.
Obviously the leisure centre, I think they provide quite a lot, sort of, because they've got the community room, and obviously Joyce runs Cheeky Monkeys. I know the government, they run a few groups at the Windmill Hill Centre as well, and actually a group at the school on this estate.
There is loads to do. There is loads, and you've got loads of play schools and everything. We've got the leisure centre for swimming, and I mean, there is a lot for it. For a tiny town, there is a lot here.
There's the leisure centre, there's the children's centre. Hopefully there'll be more sessions put on specifically with us in mind. In terms of other stuff, there isn't a sort of place to go. There isn't a coffee shop or, you know, anything like that where people would go and just meet ad hoc. You know, if you're not going to a group and you're not going to an activity, you go to each other's houses because there isn't really anywhere else to go.
The Ram isn't somewhere I'd really want to go with kids, to be honest. It's got that reputation of being full of squaddies, and it is. But there's the Legion as well, but that's about it really. The Legion does do a bit, but it's not 100% child friendly inside though. because they do have signs up everywhere saying don't let your children run around and stuff, which is quite difficult when you've got young children. They're not just going to want to sit still at the table while you sort of have a gossip and stuff.
It'd be nice to just go and sit somewhere that's neutral. All the kids play, or if you haven't got kids there, it doesn't really matter, but just have a brew with someone and say hello.
One of the good things about Tidworth, you know, we're not short of beautiful open spaces.
My girls go over to the park just across the road, and there's a park just a bit further up, but that needs work doing to it. Apparently there's something broke on it.
A lot of them are not used very well and they get broken, and I mean that's a pain. And you can't take the kids because the swings have been wrapped around 100 times, and
they've had to fence quite a few of them off because of safety issues, I guess. So there is one, you know, 3 houses away, but it's not one that I'd take my son to, just because it's mainly full of teenagers at night and they've curled the swings up and there's broken glass, and that's not somewhere I want him to get down and walk around.
There's glass everywhere. The play school my kids go to had to change which end they took the kids in because there was so much glass. And I mean that's wrong, and I mean I don't know if there is anything being done about it, but there really does need to be, because it's just dangerous. There's glass everywhere. Everywhere you turn there's a smashed bottle, and I mean it's terrible that they're doing it in parks anyway. And I think maybe they need to have a few more police about or something to stop children breaking glasses, and you know, or a good clean-up operation at least once a week, you know, because I mean it's dangerous. It's just not. It's not good. It's not good for the kids.
For me, mainly, I had a big problem with housing to start with. I was in a flat, and my airing cupboard was in my bathroom, and the ceiling fell through 3 times, and I was told I had a hole in the roof outside, and then it was the water tank. There was all sorts of issues until the end. I had a hole in my living room because it had come through, and I'd been trying for a year to get moved, and that involved ringing people each day, sending off photographs, screaming at people down the phone, crying at people down the phone, and yeah, it took to the waters to get into the electricity for them to move us, because it wasn't safe to live in because there was no fire alarms, and as it's a rented property that was necessary.
I have needed repairs. I think everybody does at some point. I raised a repair on my cooker in November and didn't get that. They condemned it in November, but I didn't get a replacement until February or March, maybe even April. I asked for my drains to be unblocked because I could smell the drains in my washing. It took them something like 16 weeks to get a quote on it.
They'll give you a time from 9 in the morning to 8 at night and stuff like that. That's not good when you've got to go out and, you know, or live a life. It's a pain.
There's a kind of ranking system to how important the repair is, to whether, you know, how quickly it gets done, and that. It doesn't always feel like it's fair or that it's done quick enough, but I certainly wouldn't want to do the job of sorting out who's priority, because I wouldn't want screaming wives on the phone to me.
I don't really know much about the Army welfare. I've not had much to do with them, not really. I mean, they put on some good dues and stuff, and you know, they run groups and stuff, so you do go and meet other people, and but no, I've not really heard anything from mine.
You're supposed to move into the houses with a welcome pack. I haven't had one. I don't know any numbers of where my husband works. I don't know I didn't know any numbers from the dentist, the doctors, any of that I didn't know because I didn't have a welcome pack and I still haven't received a welcome pack.
Basically, they ask for ideas, they come up with own ideas and ask us what we think of them. They try and come along to a couple of the coffee mornings. They do it through the unit welfare officer. I think that's a great idea. I also appreciate that you know they're limited on what they can do though. Nothing they can do can make up for the fact that your husband is away for 3 months at a time.
There's a few doctor surgeries. There's obviously the main big one is the army military base one, which does do spouses and children, and then there's also 2 NHS doctors and 2 NHS dentists in Tidworth as well.
I think the doctors are brilliant here, but then, I mean, I'm not with the military one, I'm just with the civvy one, and so far they've been really good. So.
And the minute I signed up with the doctor, in with the forms, they asked me whether I wanted to sort out for the health visitor. I sorted out with the health visitor, had a letter, and within 4 weeks of having a letter, the health visitor came to the house.
The only negative about being registered at the Army Medical Centre is that a lot of the NHS systems doesn't recognise it as a, inverted commas, proper GP. So I get letters quite regularly telling me that I'm not registered with an NHS GP and I should be registered and my child should be registered, and then I ring them up and I say I am registered and here it is. Then 3 months later I get another letter telling me I'm not registered.
For the last year there has been 1 health visitor for 250 babies, new babies, so that's not including all the older children that also come under the health visitor's care. And it's pretty stretched, and I think, I don't know, I think sometimes things might get slightly missed that shouldn't.
There's 2 schools in Tidworth. Looked at both the Ofsted reports and they're pretty much on a similar sort of par. So yeah, I mean, the schools that are here, they both seem sort of fairly decent enough. There's not enough though. There's not enough preschool places for all the children that are here, for all the regiments that have been recently sent here as well.
The school that the kids are in are absolutely fantastic. It is a really good school. They've managed to help both the kids settle in really, really well. They're in Wiltshire. Yeah, they're fantastic up there, absolutely fantastic. When I've rung the Clarendons for my middle daughter getting into school, because they have a waiting list, I was very, very angry because I was told that she was 5th on the list and that she would move up quick. I mean, her name's been down since before September. I rung a couple of weeks ago and she's been moved down the list because she's not priority. And when I asked what priority was, I wasn't told. I was just told she's not priority. You have to budget when you're living out basically in the middle of the sticks. To go home is going to cost me 80 quid in fuel to get there and back. And we pay just short of £500 for this house a month, and he's not on a major wage. He's not anywhere up in the forces. He's just completed his training. Provided
we are willing to live the army life, that means so long as we are reliant on MOD housing, which is heavily subsidised, and we move around with him, then yes, it's affordable.
I mean, I'd love to work. I hate not being with adults and stuff and just being stuck at home with 3 kids. It's horrible.
Ideally, I'd have loved to have gone back to college until the youngest daughter is in school, and then from school go back to work.
It would appear to be that I, to all intents and purposes, gave up my career prospects when I chose to marry my husband, which has been incredibly difficult for me.
I only work about 17 hours a week, so. But that one of those days is sort of a Saturday, which is difficult when they're away, obviously, because then I don't have childcare.
Because I've got 3 kids so young, I just can't. One, I can't afford to put them all in childcare. And really, there's going to be no employer to say, you know, that you can go to and say, yeah, I'd like this job, please, but sometimes my husband works late. You know, sometimes he just has to go into work when I didn't know he was, so I might not be able to turn up that day or this day, and I'm not going to be able to give you much notice and things. And
that's the difficult side of things, because obviously when he goes to Afghan, I want to be not working because I work part-time. I don't want to be working when he comes home on R&R, but I won't know when he's coming home until right near the time. So obviously it means then it's hard if I need to book time off work. And that, so it's kind of like lastminute.com sometimes.
I understand that standard careers don't always work, but because of the amazing capabilities of so many of these women, I think the capacity to run small businesses, medium-sized businesses, to pull together, to do things entrepreneurial and inventive together would be tremendous if we had the support behind us.